it's Ron again. I hope that you're having a great day. So after the angel gives John a vision of and shows him what the New Jerusalem will be like, John just then closes the book by giving some exhortations. And that starts in Revelation chapter 22, verse 6. It says this: "And he said to me, these words are trustworthy and true. And the Lord, the God of the spirits of the prophets, has sent his angel to show his servants what must soon take place. And behold, I am coming soon. Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book." So here he says basically the same thing he said in chapter 1, verse 1 of Revelation. That this book was written to show people what's going to take place. So it's not meant to be hiding things, but showing things. And that's why there are some places that are hard to understand. And again, like I said, at that time will probably be understood better, but most of it is understandable and can teach us things. And then he says, these things must soon take place. And as we saw in the starting of the book also, that soon could be, it can mean quickly, or it can mean have something like imminent. And in the context and everything, I think it means imminent. So what he's saying is, I could come at any time, so be ready. You don't want to be caught doing wrong when I come. He also says something interesting here. He says, "Blessed is the one who keeps the words of the prophecy of this book." Now by keeps, he means obey. So a lot of people might say, well, how do you obey prophecy? And when we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, Paul there talks about the stories in the Old Testament, and he says they are examples for us. And so he tells us that the Old Testament stories were written to teach us. And so we can learn from those examples. It teaches us lessons, and we should obey those lessons. And it's the same here with Revelation. These prophetic parts can teach us a lot of things. And in fact, there are two main teachings in this prophecy in Revelation. One's for Christians, and that lesson is that no matter how bad things seem to get, like when these Christians, the Antichrist, comes to power and they're being persecuted and killed, they kept doing what's right anyway, even to the point of death, and they were rewarded. They spent eternity with God in paradise after that. And so that's the lesson for us, is no matter how hard things seem to get, no matter how bad things seem to get, and even in the good times, just always continue to remember that God has a plan. He's working it out. These things aren't accidentally happening. In Revelation, we could see what's happening in heaven, that God's controlling everything. Well, the same is true now and always. It always has been. God's always been in control. He always will be. So no matter what happens in your life, if you're a Christian, just remember that God has a plan. He's working it out. And he will reward you for doing what's right, for obeying him and trusting him. And then in the end, you'll spend eternity with him in paradise. So that's the lesson for Christians. Now for non-Christians, the lesson is this, that God is coming back. And if you're rejecting him and rebelling against him, he will come back to judge you. And he'll punish you for your rebellion. And then you'll spend eternity, instead of with him, you'll spend eternity separated from him, being tortured day and night forever. And so the lesson there is, ask God to forgive you for your sins and to come into your life and make something good out of your life and escape this judgment. So if you've never done that, if you've never asked Jesus to forgive you, do that now. Just tell him, forgive me for my sins, because Jesus paid for your sins on the cross. Come into my life, take control, and make something good out of it. If you've never done that, please do that right now. And then he goes on in verse 8 and says this: "I, John, am the one who heard and saw these things. And when I heard and saw them, I fell down to worship at the feet of the angel who showed them to me. But he said to me, 'You must not do that. I am a fellow servant with you and your brothers, the prophets, and with those who keep the words of this book. Worship God.'" So this already happened earlier in the book. John was overwhelmed, and he bows down to worship this angel, and the angel says, "No, I'm a fellow servant. I'm just a created being, created to serve God and worship God just like you were. So don't worship me, worship God only." And then he says in verse 10, "And he said to me, 'Do not seal up the words of the prophecy of this book, for the time is near. Let the evildoer still do evil, and the filthy still be filthy, and the righteous still do right, and the holy still be holy. And so what he says here is that he tells John, don't seal up, don't hold back and hide these revelations. Get them out there. Tell people. They need to hear it. But then he does give John a warning here. He says, when he says, let the evildoer still do evil, he's not saying that it's okay for people to do evil. But what he's saying is even when you tell people these things, they're not going to all obey. In fact, most people are not going to listen. They're not going to obey. They're just going to keep on doing the evil that they're doing. And we see that in Revelation, even when all these judgments happened and everything, and it was obvious God was doing huge things. The people's hearts were hard, and they just kept rebelling. And so he's warning John, even when you do show them all these truths, they're not going to listen in general. They're going to disobey. But some people will. And again, there's lessons for the Christians here too. Don't encourage Christians. That's half the reason, at least, the book was written. So he just tells John, get it out there, but don't expect a huge revival and everything to change. Well, we'll stop there for today. Thanks for watching.